Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
CNC Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, CNC provides patient-centered care for your entire family. CNC Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll cover all the home teams, Saints, LSU, Tulane. We get a chance, we'll look at what could look like in the near future when it comes to conference realignment. And to break it down for us, two of the best we have in the city and the state. Rod Walker, columnist for Noel.com, Times-Picayune, and The Advocate, and Richie Mills of WGNO-TV Sports are on our panel this afternoon. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Great to have both of you back. Rod, welcome back. Tell us a little bit about what's going on at Noel.com. I'm waiting on all these new features that you're going to be having on the upcoming teams. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, well, we've already started the high school previews. We're running like one district per day. And, we'll have some LSU stuff coming up, Tulane stuff coming up. And, as the season gets closer for the Saints, we'll have a preview package coming up leading up to that season opener against Tennessee Titans on September 10th. So.
Yeah, everybody loves that. You can pull them out, you can hold on to them, you check them out, so everybody's looking for that. Welcome back to the program. Richie, welcome back. Your time of year, my friend, high school sports starting. You don't get a break until, well, maybe March or April because basketball coming right behind it, but a lot of great programming over at Channel 26 and your sister station, Channel 38. Tell us all about it.
So you can catch us weeknights, Monday through Friday, 6 and 10. You can catch me on the weekend, Saturday, 6 and 10, Sunday at 5 and 10. Well, actually, when football season starts, we won't have a 6 o'clock show because of college football. Friday nights, we have the WGNO Sports Zone, 10:30 on NOLA 38, the CW. And then following that, our first edition of the 32nd season, Friday Night Football, starts at 11 on NOLA 38, the CW. The replay at midnight on WGNO. And we'll go for about 17 weeks. Yeah. And sometimes you don't make it out of it, but it's the best part of the job.
For both you guys, kind of put your head down now and just kind of get to the end, right?
Yes. Yeah, it doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah, as far as the Pelicans, go straight from Saints to Pelicans.
Yep. And then, of course, LSU baseball, everything else is going on, no doubt. I did want to ask you again about the show simulcast with CrescentCitySports.com, right?
Yes, sir.
The show on Friday. Any type of specials you guys coming up, Saints, anything like that?
We do have an LSU Florida State pregame special Sunday, September 3rd. The kickoff special's at 5:30, kickoff's at 6:30, and we have a postgame special. I'll be in Orlando. Ed Daniels, JT Curtis will be in studio. We will cover every square inch of this game possible from the LSU perspective and the Florida State perspective. A lot of local talent on that team, and we'll highlight just about all of it.
Is this the year the SEC makes moves over to ABC, or is it next year?
I think it's next year.
Next year? Yeah, young. That's
hey, in the meantime, we get the American Athletic Conference and the championship, so it's always been a good time.
Always good, no doubt. Guys, let's start with the Saints. Both you guys have been at practice, seen this team practice going into the first game. Rad, I'll ask you first. When you saw what you saw at practice over these last few weeks, how do you think it translated to the game?
I think, especially the offense, I thought the offense looked better in the game than they have in practice. There have been a lot of practices where the defense has sort of dominated, and in this game, going against another opponent, I thought the offense, especially you look at the first team unit. I mean, you look at what Derek Carr did on their first possession and went 6 for 8, should have been 7 for 8, but Chris Olave dropped that first pass. But they drove the ball down the field right away, and that's what you want to see. And I thought they were efficient. One of the things Derek Carr talked about was how this team was. They were put in some different situations on that drive. They had a 2nd and long, a 3rd and long, had a false start penalty. So, I mean, they were able to see a lot of different things that you'll see in an actual game, and they were able to execute despite, some of the things they had to overcome. Right. So I thought that speaks volumes for that team. And as far as the defense, I think the same thing. I think that first team unit really dominated on those first 2 series of the game.
Right. Richie?
I think training camp is just so hard to gauge what this team's going to look like against another team because, again, they play each other every day. But I thought the opening possessions for both the offense and defense, like he just alluded to, is about as perfect as you can get. You get Pat Mahomes and the defending Super Bowl champs to turnover on downs on defense. Derek Carr drives down the field, his first touchdown in the Dome. One of you hope will be many. But again, I think the efficiency and the success of all 3 quarterbacks throughout the course of the game. I like the fact that Derek Carr found the end zone. Jameis Winston, 11 completions, 92 yards, and a touchdown. Jake Haener, he threw an early pick, but in that last possession in the 4th quarter, you saw what we've seen in training camp. The lights came on for him. 6-play, 76-yard drive, his first NFL touchdown pass that ultimately kept the game alive. It's just the little nuances of the game that you want to see translate from training camp. It was there, but I think it was just elevated because, again, everyone had that adrenaline lift. It was the first preseason game. A chance to look at this team while they look the way they look now.
Why don't you take the quarterbacks and your thoughts? I think everybody was most people that came in from that game felt really impressed that this is a really good quarterback room for this team this year. Yeah,
I've said I think you can make a strong argument, and we don't know how good Bryce Young is going to be at Carolina, but you can make a strong argument that the Saints' first and second string quarterback are the best 2 quarterbacks in the entire NFC South, which I think speaks volumes for this team. If Derek Carr goes down, I think you can trust Jameis enough to win you some games. So, and I think Jake Haener. I mean, you look back to Ian Book last year, he struggled as a draft pick, but Jake Haener has come in and looked really good in camp, and he's been a guy that most of the media members have been raving about throughout camp because he's really poised, and the word that Dennis Allen uses is moxie to describe him, and you can definitely see that. And you saw it Sunday in the game. I mean, he threw the pick and came back and responded and led the team to a win.
Right. Everybody wants to know about Michael Thomas, how he's looked, again, how he looked in game 1. You've seen a lot of him in practice, and of course you saw him again before the injuries really took their toll. Your thoughts?
I think he's moving well. I don't think he has issues like making cuts and stuff. He's dropped some passes in practice that we've never seen him drop, just regular, pass in his hand, which is kind of surprising. But everybody you talked to Cody Burns, the receivers coach, and they talked about how he's still kind of, trying to get back. I mean, he basically hadn't played football in the past, 3 seasons almost. I mean, he played 10 games, I think, in 3 seasons. So he's still kind of getting back to where he was. He did make the catch in the preseason game across the middle, which you want to see. That's what Michael Thomas, that's kind of what he brings the team anyway.
Have you noticed anything different about Michael Thomas? Cutting, speed, hands?
I think it's more so the explosion out of the break, but I think that's more so a ramp-up period from the injury. Like you said, he hasn't played a game in practically 2 years. But I think that's just one of those things that's only going to get better over time, and the best way to really remedy that is to play football games. And I think that's something that you have your fingers crossed you want to see from this guy because, again, he is one of the more dynamic receivers in the NFL, but you won't see that if he's not on the field, and he's not going to get better if he's not on the field. So, again, the performance in the preseason game, a good thing. You want to see a 16-yard reception from Derek Carr, but again, can you consistently stay on the field? That's the biggest question, and I think he can as long as he continues to show this progress.
Now, let's talk about the rest of the receiving corps. Rashid Shaheed has been injured. We expect him to be back for the beginning of the season. Olave really looked like he worked on his body in the offseason. One of the things he had a problem with last year was contested catches. Again, we're hoping that's something that he's going to be able to solve this year. And then we saw over the weekend A.T. Perry, the 6th round pick, really play well, and a guy that, again, he's like New Orleans roaches. You can't get rid of him. Keith Kirkwood, right? Yeah. I mean, every time you think you're cutting him and he's with another team, he's coming back. Again, that was just, he knows the system based on what you just saw with that touchdown pass where he does the delay and, of course, goes to the corner of the end zone. He's a veteran you can count on. The question is, again, when you look at Traquan Smith, he's a guy this team really likes because his blocking. That's 6 receivers right there. Where does maybe Brian Edwards or Kurt Merritt or maybe some of the other receivers that are on this roster fit in? Are those your top 6? Do you see somebody else breaking in?
No, I think this team will carry 6 receivers, and I think it'll be those 6 that you named. And, kind of going back to Michael Thomas a little bit here, I don't think he has to be the top guy like he has been in the past, because I think Chris Olave is probably going to take that role over. I mean, that's how impressive he's been. And so, I think you go with Olave, Rashid, Michael Thomas, Keith Kirkwood, A.T. Perry, and Traquan Smith. And I think those are the 6 guys that are going to be on this roster when they trim it down to 53
I do too
guys.
as well. Yeah.
I think a lot of that's based off health, too. I mean, just alone in camp, you've seen at least 14 injuries, 3 guys put on IR, some released from the team. So I think health is going to really determine the amount of receivers that they do carry. But again, I looked at A.T. Perry's performance, which was fantastic. You didn't expect it, but given the fact you got him in the 6th round, he was projected to be a 3rd-round talent. I think you showed that's a guy you can count on towards the end of the year. Shaq Davis, I did like the red zone attempt from Jay Kaner. So that, again, a big body in the red zone, something they were missing, something they addressed, again, with his pickup, Jimmy Graham's pickup, A.T. Perry's pickup. So I think there's a lot of solid options at the top, like Rod just mentioned. But again, at the bottom, you can't go wrong with any of those receivers.
I want to. Could you guys piggyback on that? Because Shaq Davis looks like he's a guy to come to the practice squad. Kurt Merritt can play both positions for both running back and wide receiver. You got a veteran in Brian Edwards who has got some time on task with Derek Carr. Remember, veterans go on the practice squad now. So how many receivers do you think could be on the practice squad, and maybe some names that we should be watching?
I think you mentioned Kurt Merritt. I mean, his versatility is just kind of hard to turn down. I mean, he's a guy that can, they played him a lot of running back during his camp. I mean, that's kind of what he's been focused on. But he can also return for you. So I mean, he just brings you something. Then you have John Trey Kirkland, who they just picked up. Former Lutcher and LSU player, and he's a guy that he had, I think, 70 yards worth of kickoff returns on his 3 returns the other day. So he's a guy that, I mean, he's new into this. He's only been here, a week and a half, but he's a guy that maybe could sneak a spot too. So as far as like a practice squad, I mean, again, I think you're going to have those 6 guys.
6 guys in the practice squad.
But I think he's a guy that could sneak on there.
Yeah, Kirtland and Bowden, both guys, again, played well. Both guys come from the SEC. The question is, Shaheed, do you let him return punts and kicks with the groin? Can that continue? Or he was almost a Pro Bowl kick returner, punt returner. How about some guys that might be on the practice squad for you? You mentioned Shaq Davis.
I do. Right? I like Shaq Davis.
Yeah,
just the big body, the big frame. I think that's something that they desperately needed, and you got that with him, so there's no need to cut him if you don't have to. Kirk Merritt's role, I think, is going to fluctuate as far as where their needs are. I mean, those first 3 weeks, you're going to need running backs. So I think Kirk Merritt's going to be primarily there, but last preseason, he caught a touchdown in the Dome as a receiver. So again, I think his role can fluctuate. Shaq Davis is great. Brian Edwards is kind of an interesting prospect to me in a sense, because he had success with Carr in Vegas. That's someone that Derek Carr himself is comfortable throwing to. You've seen them kind of have that camaraderie in practice. So again, I think Brian Edwards stays on the team, on the active roster. That wouldn't surprise me. But if you have to put him on the practice squad, that's not the worst thing. I think this is a good problem to have, the fact that you have so many capable bodies that can make an impact on a football field, and now it's just a matter of plug and play. Who do you want active? Who do you want on the practice squad? But they have a lot of talent in that room right now, and I think that's something that shouldn't be lost.
Let's talk about the offensive line for a moment and Trevor Penning, because he's such a big key to what's going to happen this season. In one game, of course, he was going against the backup with Kansas City. Obviously, he's a mauler. You're seeing him pancake guys all over the field. That's fantastic in the run game. Passing game, the question's been, again, does he have the feet, the speed to be able to take on, the fast defensive ends or, again, outside linebackers that rush the passer? Rod, you had a chance to see this guy in practice now. Has he taken the next step? Is this a guy you can count on week in, week out to be able to solidify that left tackle position?
I think the answer to that remains to be seen. I mean, we've seen some days in practice when, like, he's lined up against Carl Granderson. Carl Granderson kind of has his way with him on pass rushing a lot of times. And you mentioned the preseason game. He wasn't going up against their starters. I think we'll know a lot more about him this week in Los Angeles going up against Bosa and Khalil Mack. Yeah, I mean, we'll find out, how good he is.
That's right
away. And I still think he's a work in progress.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's, when you talk about my question marks for the team, that's one of them. I just don't, we got to see how well he's going to do in it's his second season, but I mean, he didn't play last year. So,
so kind of a rookie.
Right, so it's basically like a rookie. Yeah.
I think there is optimism in the sense when you have a guy like Ryan Ramczyk say that he is sort of seeing a marginal improvement from him each and every week, that he's taken interest in these extra drills off the side to get better and sort of improve his craft. But yeah, like Rod said, it kind of remains to be seen because we haven't really seen him in action too much. Can he stay healthy? Are we going to get him on the field for a full slate of games? But there is optimism in the fact that people around him are saying they can see the improvement, they can see that he's getting it, and the best way you're going to learn is by failing. So that couldn't be the worst thing that could happen.
It certainly looks like James Hurst is going to slide into that guard spot next to Pete. Next to Penning, with Pete injured once again. That's not a bad thing, although again you like to have him as a guy that can maybe be jack of all trades. But again, if Garcia makes the team, you have that guy. Who do you guys prefer? I'll take you first, Richie. Here, is it a preference there? Are they better off with Pete at that guard position or Hurst?
I think they're better off with Pete, but that's again a credit to his health. Is he going to be available? Right. James Hurst is not a bad option, a guy that's pretty much played everywhere but center on the offensive line. So again, the versatility comes in handy. You'd like to have Pete because when you look at this offensive line and how decorated it is, I mean, he is a Pro Bowler or All-Pro, so it's not a bad option to have at that position. You'd like to have that guy there if you can.
Another guy better at run blocking than he is at pass blocking. How about yourself? Are you more comfortable with Hurst or Pete at the guard position?
I agree with Richie. I think I would lean towards Pete, and I did see that he returned to practice today in Los Angeles. So I'm not sure. I know he was doing some individual work. I'm not sure if he was participating in the team drills, but I think just his veteran experience and having been there. I mean, I think that's your best option, but I don't think James Hurst is a bad option at all. So,
not at all.
But I mean, if you have Hurst there, and if Penning doesn't hold up, I mean, you can always slide him back down. So I think the good thing about this team, they do have those parts that they can move around like that, and that can definitely help this team.
You guys have seen, again, the depth on the offensive line. To me, the guard position, if you're going to go out in that last cut and pick up a veteran, you're doing it at the guard position. Again, they brought in Trey Turner. He gets injured. You've got a situation with Pete, who's been injured throughout the training camp. Cerise looks like he's taken the next step. Hopefully, again, that will continue as you get into the regular season. But to me, guard might be the one position you might have to backfill. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. And to me, I think the offensive line, the depth behind that first team unit is something to be concerned about. I think you see it a lot in, when Jameis Winston gets in there, he's not with the first team unit, and you see him. I mean, maybe he holds the ball too long, or maybe it's his line just not holding up. But you do see the drop off, I think. And I think when you look at that line, in the second string line in the practices against that second team defense, I think the second team defense dominates them pretty much. So I think they have to get better on that.
There's room for improvement.
There's definitely room for improvement on that line.
I think last year set a good precedence too of what happens if you don't address that issue early and get that solidified, because again, there were issues protecting the quarterback. You had issues running the football. So, and this go around, you have a $150 million quarterback back there you have to protect. You have a team that's talking about making a run to the playoffs, maybe to a championship game. So again, I think there's too much at stake for you not to address that issue right now. And I think last year is a good indication of what could happen if it does go wrong and you don't address that issue.
Well, and I'm going to go back to you again, Rod. You comfortable with the tackles, the center, 1 and 2? Is that something that you feel they have to backfill as well? We've already talked about the guard position. Obviously, they have to do that.
I think it wouldn't hurt. I mean, again, what happened last year? I mean, I like what they have right now, but it just boils down to health. I mean, that's something I hate to constantly bring up with this team, but that's something factual that they're dealing with right now.
Are you concerned at all with again the backups at the center or guard center or tackle positions?
I think I'm not comfortable with anything past that first
the first team.
That first five.
Right.
I'm just not. I just think they need to, kick the tires on everybody they can and see what you can bring in here to get better.
Right. And again, remember, the practice squad, you can have veterans on the practice squad now. Again, that also means teams can come in and grab that practice squad player as well. Guys, running back position, Kamara will be out the first 3 games. Jamal Williams has looked good in camp. You look at Kendry Miller, he's been constantly injured again with the same situation with the MCL injury from TCU. They bring in Darrell Williams this week. Kurt Merritt has been injured. Talk about the running position, the depth there, especially without having Kamara for 3 games, in the beginning of the season.
And again, they got good news there today.
Right.
Kendry Miller was practicing today.
Good.
And which was, a lot sooner than we expected. So I think that's a good sign for this team. I think it's going to be really important to see how this team can make it through those first 3 games without Kamara. I mean, you saw how good he looked in that preseason game.
Yes.
I thought he looked explosive and showed his speed. I mean, he looks like the old Alvin Kamara that we're used to. So he's a big chunk of that offense, and they're going to miss not having him. But I do think Jamal Williams is a guy who's, he's been in the league, for several years, and he can handle some of that load. But obviously, you won't find many players in the NFL that can do what Alvin can do. So you missed that.
Right, but Merriweather looked really good the other night as well.
That's a big body
Yes,
too.
yes. You don't want to get rid of those kind of guys.
Right,
okay?
right.
They've lacked that big physical running back. Well, Latavius Murray was probably the last guy they had, right?
But Jamal Williams also does kind of encompass that physicality you want in the back. I think the Kamara suspension's not the worst thing because you get him back on the field week 4 after everyone spent 3 weeks of expending their bodies.
Right.
So I guess that explosive nature, and he's going to come out hungry. You just know he is, given what happened last year and this whole process that's been hanging over him that impacted his play ultimately. You know that he's going to come out with a fiery vengeance. Jamal Williams, I like him, and I like the fact that they picked up a guy like Darrell Williams because, again, he played for Kansas City. He's played meaningful football games, and he's shown that he can be effective in those meaningful football games. When Jamal Williams led the NFL in touchdown runs last year, he did it in a committee approach with a guy like DeAndre Swift. So I think if you can get Jamal Williams out there with a Kendry Miller, with a Darrell Williams, guys that can do the same thing but 2 different things, I think that's only going to be beneficial for him, and people are going to look at his production and be like, oh, that's why we went out and signed this guy.
Yeah,
so again, I like the running back from that perspective. If Kendry Miller is hurt or needs a couple of weeks to come back, I don't think it's that too much of a loss given the fact you have Darrell Williams, you have Kirk Merritt. This is a great opportunity for him to show that he can play running back, something we've seen him do at Destrehan High School.
No doubt. Taysom is listed as a tight end. How do you think they utilized him this year? There's a lot of talent on this offense.
There is a lot of talent. You look at that tight end room with Juwan Johnson, who I think is going to have a spectacular year. Foster Moreau, who's going to have a good year, and Jimmy Graham, obviously. So I don't know how many Taysom catches. He has a lot of targets in practice. They threw him several balls 2 days ago in practice. So, they will target him. I think you'll still see Taysom doing a lot of other things. I think he'll take some snaps at quarterback, and especially on 3rd and short situations, which is an almost automatic first down for him. So I think you'll see Taysom doing a lot of what we've always seen him do.
I kind of said this last year. I thought his role in trying to find a spot for him created sort of a distraction for Pete Carmichael's first year, trying to figure out what he's going to do with this plethora of weapons. I think his role kind of takes a little bit more of a back seat now, given the fact that you've addressed your quarterback position, you've shored up the tight end spots. I think there's spots for him on special teams, and I think there is opportunities for him to catch passes, but at the same time, you throw him in at a wildcat quarterback situation, yeah, it does create confusion for defenses, but how often can you do that now, given all the tape that people probably have on him now? So I don't really know what his role looks like. I don't think he knows what his role looks like. So again, that's kind of a question mark for me, because I felt like last year it was sort of a distraction in a sense that they leaned on that. It found success. They leaned on it a little too much. People started to kind of see what was going on, and in my opinion, it's just too much right now.
He's kind of mentioned that he doesn't know this role. I asked him the other day, when you're driving to the facility, do you even know what position you're going to be on? You know what position room you're going to be in? And he's like, nah, I don't really know. So that's.
And you hear that, and you're like, year 7, and you're pulling up to the facility, and you don't know what you're doing. It's like, I guess that's a good thing in a sense, but also it's, again, year 7.
This might be the strongest tight end room they maybe have had in the history of the organization. When you look at all the great players, or really good players they have, guys that have done it in the NFL. Taysom, maybe I don't know, maybe they got to expand the playbook a little bit, and maybe not be so predictable with him. It'll be interesting to see again how that plays out. But this looks like a really good offense, and the red zone where they struggled, I think they're going to be very difficult to handle. the guys they could put on the field for you in the red zone.
I agree. I mean, you know, we talked to Jimmy Graham his first time, and he talked, you know, that's the thing that he talked about. He's like, hey, I'm still 6'5", and I, you know, I can still do my thing in the red zone. And you got Jamal Williams who can punch it in. You know, he scored 17 touchdowns last year. So
Kamara.
Yeah, just so many weapons.
Thomas.
I mean,
Honestly, you could put different lineups out there every time you go out in the red zone. But again, this is a plethora of weapons that they've acquired now. The offensive line is the key. Derek Carr, obviously. On the defensive side of the ball, I was impressed with the interior of the defensive line against Kansas City. If they can get that type of production out of Saunders and Shepard and Brzee and Roach, they're going to be a top defense again, because last year, again, they were leaky in the run. Guys, give me your thoughts. Start with you, Rod. How did you thought the interior of the defense played? And then kind of contrast that with what you've seen in practice as well.
No, they've dominated in practice. This again was an area of concern for me. I just didn't know how tough it would be to replace Onyemata and Shy Tuttle and those guys who moved on. But one thing they've talked about is how they've kind of focused more on athleticism on the interior defensive end instead of power. And you're seeing that. I mean, these guys are like really athletic, and they're able to, you know, to move around the guards and centers and make some noise and just be really disruptive. I think Colin Saunders is a guy who's going to really flourish here. I just think this is like a really good fit for him. He's like a good locker room guy. I just think everybody sort of just kind of fell in love with him already. And I don't know if we really talked about him enough in camp, but I think he's really going to be a special player for this team. I think Malcolm Roach has had a really good camp that also we haven't really talked about a lot, but he's really been dominant up front.
Yeah, I mean, last year they were one of the basically worst in the league, giving up 4.5 yards a carry, 133.5 yards a game rushing. I mean, you see the fact that they finished top 5 in the defense category, and you get confused, like, but that's really where they struggled last year. Colin Saunders, I love his athleticism. He's got a moxie about him too. And I think the beauty of him is when he came from Kansas City, he wasn't the primary guy. Malcolm Roach, he has not been the primary guy. So this has given them an opportunity to play within maybe 2 of the top defensive ends in the game and flourish in a role like Rod just said. And I think he's a great interview. Colin Saunders is. He's great. You can tell he enjoys being here, and that's just kind of some things that have stood out to me.
Talk about the defensive end position. Obviously, Cam Jordan. They're expecting Peyton Turner to step up this year. Passanio has been a steady guy for them. You look again at Granderson, who's gotten better every single year. Talk about that position, and is that a position solid, or is there a backfill there with maybe a veteran down the line?
I think it's a luxury. You can draft a guy in the 2nd round and him be your 3rd option at that position.
Foskey's not ready yet, right, guys?
But he's shown kind of the flashes of what he could be, but at the same time, they still think he's a work in progress. But again, I think that's a luxury when you can draft that there, keep him there behind Peyton Turner and Cam Jordan, because you can learn from those guys. You've seen the production from Carl Granderson. I think the defensive end position has maybe one of the more depth-worthy groups on that defense, so I like where they're at in that.
I like Kyle Phillips as a sleeper. You know, not based off what he did with the interception, but he's a guy who played with the Jets, go inside and outside. He might be a guy that could help there as well. Defensive end position.
I like the position a lot. I think Peyton Turner's going to make that leap. That you know, we've been waiting for 3 years and hoping he's not the next Marcus Davenport. And I think he's. It looks like he's turning the corner. For him, it's just going to be a matter of staying healthy. I mean, if he can stay healthy, I think he can, you know, really have a good season for him. And I think Carl Granderson, who I mentioned earlier, I mean, he's looked really well going up against
gained a lot
Trevor
of muscle.
Penning. Yeah, he's beefed up, and he's just a really good player. So I think the defensive end position is, I would almost say maybe the most solid position on the team. I mean, really, that's how much I like the defensive end position.
So you really think Turner take the next step, Granderson? That would be huge for this team, especially now. Again, you look at the linebacker position. They're trying to find a position for Zach Vaughn. Maybe, you know, if he rushes the passer, if he doesn't, obviously he's not well and does not do well in space. Warner Davis. We've seen a lot of Sewell, right, over the last few weeks. Again, Connolly played a lot the other day. They bring in Jalen Smith, who we really haven't seen yet, who's a veteran. How do you feel about the linebacker position?
Not good, especially with DeMario. Again, I was concerned. This is another concern I had going into camp, and I've said that a lot. It seems like, but yeah, and I think with DeMario, you know, battling whatever issue he is with his calf, I mean, that's that's big for this team. And Pete Werner's obviously, had a great season last year.
But he always rubbing getting injured, right?
He has some injury history. They've already lost Andrew Dowell, who's just kind of more of a backup and a special teams guy. But I think Jalen Smith's play is going to be really key, and he's a guy that I'm looking forward to seeing in LA because they didn't use him Sunday against Kansas City because he had just got here 2 days before that. But he's a guy that I think with the experience that could really help this team. But to me, it all goes back to DeMario Davis being healthy and getting back. And he's a guy that's always been healthy. So we haven't even seen him. He rarely misses a game. Probably missed one.
I can't remember missing a game.
Yeah, I think he may have missed one with a COVID or during the COVID.
During COVID,
yeah. But I think that's been it for him. He's been a really consistent player.
Yeah, but Jalen Smith has shown he can be a dude on your team.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's been one of the top linebackers in Dallas. He led New York in basically almost every statistical category. So again, he's shown he can be a guy for you. So the fact that they got him on a bargain with something to prove, I think that's going to pay off for him. But yes, they do need more capable bodies in that room.
Right, because I don't think DeMarco Jackson's ready yet. I mean, he could be. You love Sewell's speed, but he's more of a special teams guy. Summers has played some with Minnesota, and I'm sorry, what was it? Conley with Minnesota. Summers, and then of course again to get a guy like Jalen Smith so late. That could be a real coup for this linebacker position that you kind of been, you're looking for that third guy just in case there's an injury that could fit in. And right now, again, I don't know if Zach Bond's that guy.
I think something that might get lost here a little bit is why there might be so much optimism and why there's not enough worry. I mean, the schedule that they're about to play this season, it's not this rigorous schedule. You get one of the easier schedules in the NFL, so you have a chance for a lot of these guys to get this game time experience, but not against competition that's going to wear you thin each and every play. So I think that's, for me, that's why, these things are a worry, but I'm not worried too much because the schedule, especially in the division, I'm not too worried about it. But then again, if you take an off day, someone's going to beat you.
I'm glad you brought it up. Rod, you tweeted about it this week. I've talked about it on my radio show. The quarterbacks they're going to be facing, this season. And they're not exactly a murderer's row of quarterbacks. If you take the list and you go down the list, again, you did it on your tweet. I've done it on my radio show. I mean, just on paper now, they're not. It's not like you're going against Mahomes. It's not like you're going against Rodgers. You're not going against Burrow. You're going against guys that are either young guys that have never done it before, then their rookie season, or guys that are trying to take the next step, or journeymen in some cases that have maybe had a good season or two, but now don't put the fear of God in you.
Yeah, and I think that's why there's so much optimism around here. Again, we don't know how good Bryce Young is going to be. He might come in and light it up, but you have to like your chances against all these guys who just haven't been in this fire yet. And I think, again, that's why I think everybody's so optimistic on this team. I think you look at the whole slate of quarterbacks, I think Trevor Lawrence may be the best one. Or, so, I mean, and that doesn't.
Cousins been inconsistent. You go right down. I mean, when I'm going down the line, I'm looking at him going, man, everybody can talk about the schedule. We don't know. Teams go from worst to first all the time, right? But you can look at the quarterbacks and say, okay, in the past, Dennis Allen has feasted on these type of quarterbacks. He's put together schemes to take advantage of these young quarterbacks. And now, again, you look at it, it's just almost every single week, it's either a young quarterback or a guy that has to reprove himself in the NFL.
Right. And then I look at the division in itself. Who are you going to play? You have Bryce Young with the possibility of Andy Dalton. You have Baker Mayfield with the possibility of Kyle Trask.
Right.
And then you have, I'm totally blanking. Desmond Ridder with the possibility of Taylor Heineke.
Right.
So which one of those groupings are going to scare you? Last year, you played Joe Burrow. You had Lamar Jackson here at the Dome. You had Derek Carr, but they played well. But again, you're not that worried about the competition that you're playing, the competition that's going to matter for you to make a playoffs.
Right. Last question about the team, and then we'll move on. Secondary. It looks to be one of the strongest parts of the team, especially when you look at the cornerback position right now. I like the safeties. I still wonder why they don't have Tyrann Mathieu more in a free safety position. But again, May and Mathieu seem to be, again, working as a tandem. What you've seen so far, how do you feel about that defensive backfield?
Really good. I think Marshawn Lattimore has been my MVP in camp, although you can make a strong case for Chris Olave, as a receiver. But I think Marshawn's been really dominant. He talked the other day about how he wants to be the best cornerback in the league. And, a lot of times you get guys who are veterans like that. They aren't as locked in at training camp because, they're just kind of like going through the motions. But he has been definitely locked in, and it looks like he has something to prove this season. And So I think he's been really solid on that side. You don't have to worry about that side of the field at all. And I think the Paulson Adebo and Alontae Taylor battle for the other cornerback position. To me, Adebo's ahead right now, and I think he's probably going to end up being the starter, and I think you may line up, Alontae as a nickel corner. But I really like the cornerback position, and I like the safety position. Especially, I think Marcus May, he battled some injuries last year, but he's a guy that, him and Tyron are starting to gel a little bit more, and I think you're going to see that on Sundays.
Yeah, I think the secondary is the strength of that defense based on the depth that they have, the talent that they have across I mean, when you have guys like Alontae Taylor, Paulson Adebo fighting for a spot, that's not a bad problem to have. So again, I think that's the strength of this defense, and it's surely going to make an impact come the season.
Right, and you got a veteran like Roby as well, who can play. They are stacked there, and injuries have really beset that particular position. Hopefully, again, they'll stay healthy. That's really the key to this season, right? I mean, again, we've seen a lot of injuries in camp. Hopefully, those are not going to be season-end injuries for most. But again, stay healthy, and they got a chance to win the division and move on.
That's the key, and who knows if they can do it, but if they can, I think this team has a chance to be special this year.
Guys, we'll take a quick break here. Richie Mills of Channel 26, WGNO-TV Sports is with us. Rod Walker, columnist for NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, the Advocate. Both guys are on the panel today. I'm Eric Asher. I'm your host. We'll hear from our underwriters. When we come back, we'll touch on the collegiate game. Also, I hope we get to have a chance to get into conference realignment and what that may look like in the future. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Stay tuned.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Acadian Custom Shutters is locally owned and operated, specializing in interior and exterior shutters and window coverings, as well as awnings and patio covers. Acadian Custom Shutters offers American products with personal service and workmanship, serving the South Shore, North Shore, and Mississippi Gulf Coast. More information is available at 985-893-3119 or AcadianCustomShutters.com.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We have Rod Walker of NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, and Richie Mills of Channel 26 Sports on our panel today. Guys, bear with me, one more question about the Saints. Coach. Last year, he did not look comfortable as head coach. I heard an interview with Aaron Summers after the game on Sunday, where again he talked about being in control. I'm not at practice. You guys see him on the field. Last year there were complaints that they weren't restarting plays when they made mistakes. That there wasn't that, Peyton type in your face, when you make a mistake on the field. It was a different vibe. Almost, again, I called it the substitute teacher, right? I don't get that vibe this year, but you guys have been there. Talk about Dennis Allen and what you think he's going to be in year two.
I think he's definitely more comfortable. You look at, some of the changes he made on his coaching staff. I think he has his guys in there now. The last year, he still has some Sean Payton's guys, and I just think he is a bit more comfortable now. And he is more in control, and I think the players he's kind of meshing well with them. He even does this thing now where he runs the sprints with them after practice, and he didn't do that last year. But I think and I think the players notice it. I think they picked up on it. They can see he has more confidence. And I know he coached in Oakland before, but you can just see there's a difference now. And when I did my predictions the other day, that's one of the things I mentioned. I think his confidence is going to help his team be even better this year. They sort of believe in him more. They believe in the guys he's brought in. So you hope to see that translate to some more wins for the team.
From the outside in, I feel that vibe as well.
The comfort definitely would be a thing, given the fact that last year you were dealt an unfortunate hand, given all the injuries they had.
Yes.
You didn't have a starting quarterback, so I think the comfort in a sense that there were so many uncertainties in year one. You just got hired and you're trying to figure out how to be a head coach again. And now you've been in the system a year. You have the guys that you want around you. You have everything you could possibly want. One thing that sticks out to me is last year you go out to training camp and there's just a feel. It's a little bit more lenient. Sean Payton's not here. It just felt more comfortable. Like people were able to breathe, have fun. But I think that's not necessarily what you need in the NFL.
Right.
You go out to training camp this year and you could just feel it. You could just feel that difference of everyone's focused, everyone's honed in, everyone from the head coach to the intern with the communication staff. They just all feel like they're dialed into a common cause, and you can feel that when you're out there. So again, I think he is more dialed in and in control.
LSU consensus 5th in the nation, Tulane 23rd in the coaches, 24th in the AP poll. Southeastern looks like they're going to have a good year. Looks like we're going to have some really good teams here in college football coming up in the upcoming season. But let's take LSU first as they get ready to take on Florida State on ABC on Channel 26. We were like 17 days away, I think, or so. I think right around there, 17 days away.
The blink of an eye will be
right. There you go. This team, obviously, again, they've worked the transfer portal well. They have had a pretty good recruiting classes coming off again, which looked like the cupboard was bare when Ed Ogeron was gone. Talk about Brian Kelly and what he's been able to do in the transformation in just 2 years in turning this program around.
I think even what he was able to do just last season alone. I mean, this team had the loss to Florida State. A lot of people were like questioning the hire at the time. It's like, man, did we hire the right guy? And he was able to get that thing turned around, and I just think that's going to really carry over. I mean, we know he can recruit. We've seen that. We know what he did at Notre Dame. So I think he's really laid a good foundation already in year one. When you talk about this season, I do think that, again, I think that first game is going to be critical. I mean, it's two top 10 teams. So I mean, I think they really need to come out of the gate strong if they want to have a good season this year. I don't know if you want to lose to Florida State again and try to rebound. I think you want to, come out
get that W.
I think metaphorically speaking, he went in there with a sledgehammer and just completely demolished everything and reconstructed it the way that he wanted to, because even in his first press conference this year, he talked about still teaching his team and expecting his team to know how to practice and prepare. Those are two pillars of the success that they had last year, according to him. And that's kind of something you saw them pick up along the way. The crossroads for them last year was that beatdown against Tennessee at home. So that's kind of when you saw the flip switch. But when I look back at that Florida State game last year, there were so many question marks. Jaden Daniels wasn't named the starting quarterback until hours before kickoff. Their offensive line that started the year was completely different from the one that finished the year. Now you have two sophomore studs, Will Campbell, Emory Jones. You have a loaded backfield. You just added Logan Diggs. When I was there at practice last week, they had 5 quality running backs taking reps. That's a solid problem to have. You have a great receiving room. You've recruited great talent. I just think there's a lot to be excited about. And given the fact that Brian Kelly went in there with that sledgehammer, basically destroyed everything and said, your way was fun, my way's going to work. And that's sort of what you're starting to see. That's why people are talking national championship around this team. That's why Jaden Daniels is the second odds favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. That's why you have all these LSU players on awards watch lists to start the season, just like Tulane. But we'll get to that later. But there's just so much optimism and positivity and progress that we've seen after 1 year, and I think it's starting to show with Brian Kelly.
See, I'm with Richie. I'm excited about this offense. I think they've got depth. I think they've got great skill position players. I think you look at 1, 2 on that depth chart when it comes to quarterback, you feel good about that. I think you feel much better about the offensive line after, again, what they did last year in terms of, again, getting some experience there. Your tight end position is going to be a little bit young with a lot of freshmen. They're going to give you something. But, again, I think offensively they could be a juggernaut.
I think so. I mean, we saw it last year. I mean, Malik Neighbors is, we're talking about all these guys are going to be in the NFL. It's what you typically see in an LSU team anyway. So, I like the team on both sides of the ball. I mean, the offense is good, but I think I mean, obviously Harold Perkins and those guys on defense.
Yes.
I don't know if we're getting to that
We
later,
will.
but okay, I'm sorry.
But
I'm saying I think this team has a chance to just be really special on both sides of the ball, and that's what in the SEC. It all starts in the trenches. I mean, just like I guess all levels of football. But when it comes to beating teams like Alabama and Georgia, you got to be good up front, and I think this team is good up front.
I agree with you, Rod. I think that's where the rubber. You get Mason Smith back, although he's dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury right now. I think on defense, the only real question mark right now is the secondary and the cornerback position, because you have so many transfers that have come in. They're trying to, again, go back to DBU by what the recruiting that they're doing. You follow that again. They've got some really good guys coming down the pipe here. But right now, you're relying on a lot of transfers. Zy Alexander was great for Southeastern. Can that transfer to the SEC? Chestnut was at Syracuse. They got a situation with Denver Harris right now. Talk about the defense, strengths, weaknesses. I got to believe right now that everything but the cornerback position they're pretty solid.
I think the strength is the front seven, especially if Mason Smith can stay healthy, because he's been a force. Brian Kelly raved about him in year one. It's unfortunate he got hurt in their opener against Florida State. The secondary, you brought up Zy Alexander. That was my immediate name I was going to.
Yeah.
Just when you saw him in practice at Southeastern, they had two guys last year, Philando Jordan, Zy Alexander, and you look at these guys in the defensive back room and Hammond, and you're like, that's two NFL corners, and they're playing at Southeastern.
Right.
So when he transferred to LSU, in my mind, immediately having covered Southeastern, I'm saying, there's your starting corner. Who's the next one?
I loved him.
Chestnut's coming along. Yeah, you're making a jump from Syracuse, which is not a bad program.
No, it's not.
Their defense has been solid. They've produced NFL talent. But he's coming along. There's optimism there. And then there's the freshmen that Matt House was naming last week. You had guys like Ashton Stamps from Rummel. He called him a football nut, which I thought was great, because he is. And he's a great player that got better over the course of camps and is now in Baton Rouge playing for LSU. So I think the cornerback room, there's a lot to like there. There is a lot of talent. We just don't know about it yet, and we'll find out.
Yeah. How good can this team be?
I think they can be really good. I think they can get back to Atlanta.
Okay.
Obviously, it's going to depend on how they do in Tuscaloosa. I guess it's in November, whenever that game is. But I think this team has a chance to be really good. I think, again, the key, I think, is to come out the gate again and beat Florida State.
Yes.
I mean, you lose that game, then you got to kind of work your way back up. But they need to win that game. But I think this team has a chance to. I don't know if they can go undefeated, but I mean, I think this is a 10-win team. I don't know what the over/under is, but.
Yeah.
I think it was 9.5.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd take the over on that this team.
Yeah, I think so too. How about yourself?
I think they have the potential to compete with Tulane in the Sugar Bowl. No, I'm just but in all seriousness, the last
All the
time,
Tulane fans went, yes, yes.
The last time we saw a team like this, where you had one football, a solid transfer quarterback, and more playmakers than you can ask for with a decent offensive line, they won a national championship. Is that going to happen? You don't know, because Georgia's still there. They've won 2 in a row. Bama will forever be there. And then you don't know who else is coming out of the Big Ten, Pac-12, Pac-4, whatever you want to call them, but there's always going to be another team there. I think they will compete for it. I think they'll be in the playoff discussion. They showed that last year, even after losing to Florida State and Georgia in the SEC championship. But you don't know until it happens, because so many things can happen between now and then.
Yeah.
But they do have the potential.
I think so too. All right, guys, Tulane coming off maybe the greatest season in the history of the program. So many things are happening now. The new locker room. Again, they're going to announce a new practice facility soon. They're going to build on campus. You look again, the coup of bringing Michael Pratt back when Florida's breathing down his neck, wanting to come on over. Now again, NIL with again with a lot of their backers now coming in and putting up the money so they can compete there. So it's a different vibe at Tulane right now. Willie Fritz, again, not going to Georgia Tech, which, again, most people, again, in the history of Tulane, that just doesn't happen. I mean, again, you have success, you move on to another school. Him staying again, and, of course, that Cotton Bowl victory over USC. I'll take you first, Richie. Richie, how good can this team be? When you look at it, I think the offense is solid. They have really good receivers. They have a stable of running backs, and everybody's worried about the running backs. They got stable running backs. I think their offensive line is going to be better. They bring Cam Wire in an addition there. And I think, again, you look at that quarterback position with Pratt and Kai Horton, Ibieta. I think they've got some talent there as well. I think offensively, they are stacked.
They are. The offensive line is a big thing for me. You returned 6-7 guys that have played quality reps for you last year. year. Cam Wire, an LSU transfer, we know that he's been a pivotal piece of that offensive line. Michael Pratt is about as good as any quarterback you're going to find in the country this year. Kai Horton being his backup, and you have Justin Ibieta behind him, who was the second string last year. But Kai Horton has played high-level football his entire career. Carthage, Texas, if you ever go to Carthage, Texas.
Have not been.
But when I covered them years ago, they were on a 40-game win streak. They won 3 straight state championships in the highest level of Texas football you can imagine. Kai Horton knows how to play football. He showed that last year. Their running back room, you don't know much about them yet, but I can guarantee you they're going to have an impact given the fact that the offensive line's good, the strength of schedule is not what it was last year, and they're unproven. They all see the headlines. They all know what we're talking about.
Yes.
The receiver room in itself is the most interesting part to me. You bring back a guy, Lawrence Keys, Jaquan Jackson. They have 2 freshman studs, one 6'3", one 6'5", Brazel and Summers, that I think you're going to know their names by the end of the year. The defense for me, the strength for them is their secondary. Their front 7 is no joke as well.
Right.
You lost Dorian Williams, Nick Anderson. You brought in Tyler Grubbs, and you have guys that have been waiting in the wings to make an impact. I wouldn't be surprised if they're better on paper this year than they were last year.
I agree with you. Well, look, Machado comes in and Grubbs. I think that kind of solves your problem at linebacker. I think you got better on the defensive line. I think you got some veterans in the defensive backfield. I think this is a well-rounded team, and I think, look, you've always had to worry about Tulane specialists, right? Punts and kicks, and I think they're solid there as well. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree, and everybody kind of talks about Ty J. Spears no longer being there, but Richie mentioned the running back committed, so they won't have that big home run hitter like Ty J. But I think they have a lot of good guys who can pick up some yards for them. But to me, the biggest thing about this team is just the confidence they have. I got a chance to be at Dallas when they won that Cotton Bowl. It was electric, and I couldn't believe it was a Tulane. I mean, it was nuts. And that team got so much confidence from that win. I mean, and I think it just did so much for this program. And this is a team a program that's not trying to be like some one-hit wonder. They're trying to sustain, and I think Willie Fritz has put something in there to make this a sustainable thing. And so I think this team's going to be really good this year too. And for me, the big game for this team is going to be, I don't know if it's week 2 or week 3. Week 2, the Ole Miss game. They come to town, 2 top 25 teams. It's going to be electric weekend in the state of Louisiana. The Saints season opener that weekend too. But yeah, that weekend's that game's going to tell a lot about this Tulane team.
I mean, Rod, Tulane's 7 games out preseason. Yeah. I mean, I go back to Tulane Stadium, right? And that wasn't happening back then. So I mean, again, there's a real good feeling about Tulane going into this year.
I think the big thing was, how were they going to capitalize? And they have the Fear the Wave Collective, which has brought in more funds to support the NIL cause for them. They've got the brand new locker rooms. They're working on the indoor facility. So everything non-football but football related, they're handling on their end. They have the talent. The running back room, Shoddy Clayton, Cedric Lewis. I mean, you have all.
And you
these
saw
guys.
Arnold Barnes in high school.
Oh,
he's a
my
player,
gosh.
man.
I think he's going to be the next thing for them in that backfield. But again, there's so much talent there. The one thing for me that I'm worried about, you have Ole Miss. South Alabama's no pushover.
You cannot.
2020 showed us that when you have a Tulane football team with high expectations, you expect them to win 8 to 10 games. If they don't handle business that first week, which I was there in Mobile for that game, and South Alabama beat them. Yeah, there was a late charge at the end, but if you don't take care of that and you overlook that week 1 opponent, South Alabama, they have some solid talent on that team every single year. So again, if you don't handle business there, you might as well just forget the fact that they play Ole Miss week 2.
Tulane bowl team, possible champion of their conference.
I think double-digit wins, championship in the conference, and then I think they're playing in a New Year's Six Bowl. Maybe LSU in the Sugar Bowl. I don't know.
You keep saying that.
The Sugar Bowl is a college football semifinal this year. So I'm just letting you know.
That's why I keep bringing it up.
There you go.
Yeah, I think they're definitely a bowl team. I think they're definitely going to win. And I think, there's some teams that have left the conference, so I just think the conference is a little bit easier now. I'd almost be shocked if they didn't win the conference. I mean, that's kind of how confident I am in this team.
I didn't ask you guys about the Saints, though. What do you think the Saints will do this year?
I think they'll win their division. I think they'll make playoffs. I think they'll win at least 10 games. But whatever happens after that remains to be seen. The one thing that's been bothering me is I've seen people mention Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. They haven't made the playoffs in 2 years. Let's knock down one domino before you get to the next one.
Yeah, I haven't won in the division. But I do think the division could be tough. I just, again, I keep bringing up Bryce Young. I just don't know how good he's going to be. And sometimes I think that Atlanta can be sneaky good. I mean, it's a team that probably should have beat the Saints in the opener last year. Second game, I guess that was Ritter's, one of his first starts. But I think the Saints, I mean, I think on paper they're easily the favorite in that division. I think Tampa Bay is going to really fall off this season. So,
guys, Tulane is kind of in a position right now where they're seeing all this change within conference realignment right now, and of course we don't know what's going to happen with the Pac-10. There was talk again that they may merge with the Mountain West. It'll be the Pac-West. There's also talk that maybe some ACC teams will end up with a Big 12, or they may do a Pac-12 or Pac-4, ACC again merger. So much on the table right now. Tulane is hoping again they can continue to win, so they have a chance to get into and when this conference realignment musical chair stop, that they have a place at the table. How do you think this thing comes out in terms of conference realignment? Are we going to end up with 4 big conferences? What happens there? We got about 4 minutes. I'll give you each guys 2 minutes to talk about what do you think is going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to come down to, I don't know if it's going to be 2 super conferences or 4, but I think it will come down to at least 4 at the most. And you know, I'm not really a big fan of it just because of, especially some of the traveling and some of the smaller sports. I mean, you got a softball team at Oregon they'll have to fly across the country and play a weekend series against Michigan or something.
Penn State.
I mean, that's just it's kind of absurd, and I don't know where the money's going to come from, but obviously the TV contracts is going, will compensate for some of that. But yeah, I think conference. It happened so suddenly.
It did.
I mean,
I thought we'd be a couple years. But it did jump in. How about you, Richie?
It's just weird. The travel, in a sense, like Rod just brought up. I mean, if you have schools like Washington State, Stanford, Oregon State considering a jump to the American, okay, that's going to be one heck of a road trip for whoever's on the away team. That schedule. The SEC is going to be the major power here. I think everyone can agree on that. It's just kind of uncomfortable and it's confusing to constantly keep track of. But I mean, change is inevitable in pretty much anything, including college football. It's going to happen. This is happening right before our eyes. But it's also one of those that just seems like it's dragging you out. There's so many moving pieces. I'm just waiting for it all to be done.
But it worked. To me, it works for football. I mean,
does.
But the others for basketball, I mean, it's just going to be.
Right.
Well, let me ask this, Rod, because again, that's been talked about, that maybe again football needs to break off, and that we have again these super conferences for football, but we go back to the traditional conferences for basketball and the minor sports.
I think that gets complicated.
Okay.
I mean, I like the idea, but I just think, you know, you got some of these teams. I don't know if USC wants to play Oregon if they've left them behind in football. Well, not USC Oregon, but USC and Oregon State or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, do you still want to play these guys if they left you hanging? So I don't know how it's going to work out.
I think the other sports are different, especially for basketball, because you have the NCAA tournament where the field is 68 teams. So I think football, it could be a little bit simpler because they're expanding to 12.
12, yeah.
So I think, there's so much confusion with it towards the end, but football would make sense to do it. But other sports, I think they really just need to reconsider what they're doing.
I just don't think it's financially feasible. I mean, how are you going to take your golf team and as you mentioned, that's domiciled on the West Coast and bring them to the East Coast? And I just don't think it's going to work eventually. Now they're saying TV money is going to make up for it. You know, it is what it is. But we'll see again. You know, again, we're in a different world with transfer portal, NIL, everything else that's going on, and tradition has been part of college athletics, and you hate to lose that. That's the only thing that, again, at the end of the day, things change. I get it, but you hate to lose those traditions.
Yeah, that's my thing. And again, it just happened so suddenly. I mean, if it had been gradual, I think we probably could have accepted it. But you just kind of started one week, and at the end of the week, teams, conferences are broken up.
Imagine you're the last 4 standing in the Pac-12 right now. How are you feeling right now? You're like, oh my God, what's going on?
Right.
No, now you got the last word. Got 20 seconds.
I have nothing to say.
Okay, but that's good enough there.
LSU versus Tulane.
LSU versus Tulane in the Sugar Bowl. Guys, next time I get you guys here, we'll talk about some Pelicans. I'm excited about the season. Hopefully they can stay healthy. And again, we could see, wow, it'd be great for sports here in New Orleans because winners all the way around. Richie Mills, Rod Walker, thanks so much for your time today here on Inside New Orleans Sports. All right, so many ways to catch our program now. There's a QR code on your screen. Click on it. It'll take you either to my website, ericasher.com, or the WLAE-TV YouTube page. Pick your favorite time slot. This with so many rebroadcasts of our program. Set your DVR and you'll never miss Inside New Orleans Sports. Catch me on the radio, 106.1 FM. That is weekdays 4 to 6. You can listen live at ericasher.com. Also, again, on the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn Radio app, Anchor, Spotify is where you can find our podcast of our program. Remember, on our social media platforms. We post all of our programs, both radio and TV, if you'd like to catch it there. And of course, we want to thank our underwriters who make this program possible. Each and every one of those underwriters, please support those underwriters. And of course, we thank the production staff here at WLAE-TV as well, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Logan Graffia, Danielle Wick, Alex Chacon, and of course, the best director on the planet, William Hill. For Richie Mills, for Rod Walker, I'm Eric Asher. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.